Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, August 8th, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning Five and Change. Got an interesting show coming up for you today. We are going to speak to the people. Bill Kurelic is still sunning himself in SEC country at a mysterious location. Mark Porter is here. We asked for questions from the front row, and we'll get to those first, and then we'll do our best to take whatever questions you guys have. Once again, our guys are at practice today. So yesterday it was a host of linebackers and such. Before that, it was the quarterback. So we'll see who we get today. I'll have that information for you shortly. But you'll want to be locked into the site all day. But first, if you don't have time to do much else, you need to eat. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel them up with Factor meals. They're no prep, no mess meals. They will meet your wellness goals in time for summer. Summer's here. They've got a menu of chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. They are fresh, they are never frozen, and they are dietitian approved, and they are legitimately ready to eat in 2 minutes. If you have any food snobs in your house, kids who don't eat meat out of a microwave, I have two. This solves that. It is good stuff. No matter how busy you are, you still always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals, 35 different meals, 60 add-ons to choose from. It really is a way to streamline everything, make your eating more efficient for those of you people who spend a lot of time doing other stuff, and there are a lot of you. It's kind of an effortless support for your lifestyle. 6 menu preferences. It really is kind of the evolution of where we're getting to eat as quickly as possible and as healthy as possible. So head to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50. And then you're going to use code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box and then 20% your next month. Again, Bucknuts50 at factormeals.com. That's 50% off the first, 20% off the next. You'll want to get on that. It is a great deal. Speaking of another great deal, Mark Porter joins us. Mark is handling 2 seats this week as the dean chose to sun himself in the SEC country. We will get a full report on that. Lord knows a week away with the dean and his grandchildren will be rollicking content going forward, Mark. I know you've been trying to follow that as much as you could. But given that, we asked for some questions from our wonderful users. So I want to get into those. Mark's had a chance to see these. So we will take these. We'll get after it. Mark will kind of guide me on how to handle this. I see we have some diagrams coming up for your smarter Bucknutters. The first question, Mark, it comes from Stony Rock. What do you see Chip Kelly doing to improve the offensive line blocking this year? With our receivers, do you feel that it would be more important to have a blocking tight end or a receiving tight end? Do you feel we have a tight end that can do both adequately? And then he asks, are there any tight ends in 2026 for Ohio State? It appears to be one area we could improve. Maybe improve. Certainly, it's a little bit of an unknown factor as we go into the season. We haven't talked about it as much. Your thoughts on tight end and Chip Kelly?
Yeah, that was like 7 questions. So we got to take that slowly and break that down. The first thing is Chip Kelly. How is his offense going to help out the offensive line? I think, and this is me kind of stealing some of the college coaches I've talked to, some of what they're saying. Not only does Chip try to stretch you vertically, but there's a horizontal stretch to him where formationally he wants to, cover all 50 yards and, make sure you're covering 50 yards deep. He wants to make you cover every inch of grass, and he has ways to attack places that you're cheating. So I think you're going to get a lot of balanced defenses out of him and a lot of, lighter boxes. I don't want to say light boxes, but I want to say he'll have ways to keep it out of it, and especially our receivers. If you're going to play these guys tight, you should pay it. And I think the quarterback run will be used this year a little more, and that should open up some holes. A lot of times the quarterback run play is the best play in sports because you have an extra blocker. The graphic that I have there, Dan, if you pull that up, Ohio State loves to run zone, and just want to look at the offensive line here. This is a lot of zone blocking, where the hardest block in sports is out here at tight end when you got to go reach a guy who's outside of you and get that outside shoulder, because that player is taught, do not give up the outside. Same thing with this block, reaching out to the next gap, and all these guys are reaching. This is a typical zone play, and some of these reach blocks are a little exaggerated to, maybe stress how hard they are. I like when you pin guys, pin and pull, and you kind of create seams like that. Chip will do both. You'll see both. But to run zone, I always thought you had to be kind of caveman strong, where you just have to be bigger, stronger, faster than the guy across from you to get all these position blocks. And once you get these, you defeat the defense. You simply use your brawn and your muscle to do that. And in the past, Ohio State has asked their offensive linemen, we know, to zone block a lot. If there's 20 runs in a game, there's 5 or 10 zone plays, sometimes more. So as Chip gets here and we see more misdirection, quarterback runs, and you can take this down now, I don't think we're going to have to rely on being cavemen up front as much. And, sometimes when you're working with linemen that aren't cavemen and can't just kick the hell out of the guy across from them, you got to come up with other schemes, whether it's traps and pulls and trays and G's and logs and all kinds of different ways to use guards and stuff like that. So that's a long answer for that question, but I think there's a lot that can be done. And, with Chip and the formations, it looks good. College coaches I talked to think this was like too good of a hire. They're almost like, really, the rich getting beyond richer, so I think some of those are the reasons I touched on. And that's what we'll be looking for when we break down games every week.
The Chip Kelly thing, it's like every single thing people had an issue with Chip Kelly doesn't apply to the job he has now. You know what I mean? It's like there's never been a question about Chip Kelly's chops as an offensive guru and a forward thinker. It was more the administrative, overall head coaching stuff. And you've taken that out. Very optimistic. All right.
So the next part of that was about the tight ends. Do we have a tight end on the roster, run blocking tight end? The tight end from OU, Kazmarek, is your run blocker.
Will Kazmarek, yep.
Yes, Will Kazmarek. And there's guys behind him that can block too. Of course, Scott is more of a receiving type, but we might be changing our opinion on that. He is so much bigger and thicker now that, he may be more of a hybrid, a balanced tight end. He was always skewed towards the receiving type. In this day and age, you have to have the inline wide tight end, the blocker, the tackle that can go run a few routes for you. But it's also nice to have the move tight end that can, be a mismatch problem on linebackers and run by people. Scott is usually that guy, and the bigger guy would be Will. But we'll see how that plays out. I think there might be more. I think there might be more balance in Kazmarek too. He might not be a bad receiver, so we may be closer to balance more than to the extremes on our own roster. And then I think the final question was 2026. What type of tight ends are out there in Ohio? There's a couple guys out there. Cole Albers is a 6'7", 230-pound tight end from Minster. That's one of my sleepers that I can't wait to go check out this season and see how he looks. Cooper McCutcheon from Moeller was at the Ohio State camp this summer. Landon Myree from Princeton was at the Ohio State camp this summer, and he looked really good. He was probably the closest to an offer, I thought. Sam Hamilton also from Moeller is another good one. Joe Cottle from Lexington. There's a handful of tight ends. I could go down this list a little further. So there's your sneak peek at 26 tight ends.
What about Braden Fogle?
Oh, yeah. I think I have him in the report as a defensive end. Report I'm looking at right now, because coming out of basketball season, I wasn't sure where we were going to put him, but that's obviously where we looked at him this summer.
I expect Fogle to emerge over this season to be one of the better players in the state. Guys of this ilk who have just never focused on one sport specifically. Fogle, I think I saw a ranking of the top basketball players in the state, and if he's not top 10, he's top 20, which means usually about the top 22 kids in the state are Division I basketball players. So you're talking about a really good athlete there and talking about the do both guy. And my one thing on G. Scott It's one thing to ask a guy to be kind of a hybrid when he's 19, when he's 22, 23 years old, got a little old man strength in him. He's been in mixed weight room 3 or 4 years. I feel much more comfortable about him trying to seal the edge now and kind of doing both, as opposed to he came here as a receiver. I mean, G. Scott was in that group with Fleming and co, who was expected to be a receiver. So he's built himself over time, and he's what they call a grown a man at this point. All right. LJ Ventresco. It's a good shot. Good morning. Good morning to you, sir. Mark, do you have any names that you know you're going to this season? Oh, excuse me. Do you have any games that you know you're going to this season? And what is your impression of the new Catholic League starting in 2026? Thanks. Just if you could explain what he means by the new Catholic League in general, that would be helpful. But maybe I don't think you've got your itinerary for the whole season yet, but there's always a few games that highlight your schedule. And once again, any Ohio player that has a chance to make it to Ohio State, we will be all over this season, and Mark will have the best and earliest scouting report on. Once again, as a reminder, Mark does an eye in the sky for every game, and he'll do an eye in the sky for every weekend in Ohio, and that content will follow in the week that goes, and it will be the best you will get anywhere. Okay, I just sold. Now, back to the question. Do you have any games that you know you're going to early on? There are sometimes some sexy non-conference games, traditional games to start the season, especially in a state like this. And then explain what this new Catholic League is and how it might affect everything.
Yeah, the algorithm that pops up in my head when picking games is one of the more advanced algorithms on planet Earth. There's over 350 games every weekend. There's 18 weeks. My general rules are I only go see a half of a team, and then I go somewhere else to see another half. And I only try to see a team once. And obviously I'm trying to scout the most prospects, put my eyes on the most bodies, and that's the best way to do that. So I save some of the better teams for later in the year. I noticed week 1, okay, to give you some good games, down in Columbus, Glenville and Upper Arlington play.
Oof.
Yeah, that's a nice one. And then St. Edward will be down there to play Pickerington North. Okay, so
like
yeah, go no further than week 1, and there's 2 heaters right in your backyard. So you guys, we'll have some stars down there and some Ohio State players to check out. I kind of lay in the weeds the first couple of weeks. I might go see some smaller schools. Cole Albers is the perfect example of Minster. I maybe go see him week 1, okay? Because I know that St. Ed's will be in the playoffs. I know Glenville will be in the playoffs. And that's where that algorithm comes in. There's Thursday night football and Saturday night football. I know there's certain teams that perennially play on Thursdays and Saturdays. I can see them. So, for me to pick one game, tough, but there's some for you. Now, the Catholic League, Ursuline, Mooney, Walsh Jesuit, a lot of the Catholic schools, Bishop Hartley.
Where
Bishop
is
Reed.
this?
This is in Ohio, but the Catholic schools from Akron, Youngstown, Columbus, really a spread out region have joined up to form a league. If you know, the Catholic schools sometimes have trouble scheduling a full schedule. Not a lot of teams want to play them because they're so good for their division, computer points, etc. There's a lot of reasons that are valid or not valid. So they got together so they can pretty much get themselves where it's Benedictine. I wish I had all the names right here, but I think I got a lot of them. They're all going to play each other, but it's going to require some travel. On paper, it's great. The athletic directors love it because, boom, our schedule's done. We're not making 600 phone calls, okay? We'll see how the fans and that type of stuff match it. And we'll see how coaches like the 2 or 3 hour drive from Youngstown to Columbus and how your players play. Are they fresh? Do they lay an egg? Is it a real advantage to have the home game when your kids are chilling out all day and everyone else is on a bus leaving school early and road stops, and you know how it is traveling with a big group like that. So I think that might be the headache down the road and the cost of travel. I think you lose student sections when you do that. I'm sure there will be spirit buses and, it's not a total damper, but there's now a process and some work behind it, but that's what's going to happen next year. So there's your little breakdown on that.
It's interesting. It's not the sexiest part of high school administration, if there is any sexy parts of high school administration, but one of the biggest issues these people face is travel for games and such. I know among public schools, you get into a bigger state, that is literally the number one issue is space between games and stuff. When you're from a non-urban area, then you got to make a rule that fits everybody. I do understand the idea of going to the Catholic League, though. Scheduling, like we said, is so hard. These people, like you said, they want it done as soon as possible. They want routine. They want to be able to plan it out several years in advance. My guess is they were having trouble doing this with some public schools. And if all the private schools kind of get together, private schools kind of make their own rules to a certain extent. They aren't as subject to overreaching guidelines. Listen, in some states, like I've never been, Ohio's one of the few states I think you'll find that Catholic and public cross at the end anyway. So we may be headed towards, I don't want to start a whole, if Ohio eventually split, I mean, long-term down the road, it would not surprise me, but we'll get to that. Let's get to our other ad here because Mark is a very expensive guest. And if the dean isn't here, he needs twice the salary and I got to go, you know how that works. And he's got to smell good. Mark is a fine smelling scout. But the reason how he does that, Mando, whole body deodorant. This will be your best friend this summer. Clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours. And you can put it anywhere. The whole body, the pits, the package, the feet, anywhere in between. Stops odor before it starts. Got that stuff you like. It's American made. It's available in 4 cologne quality scents. Mark's favorite, Urban Leather. That's not surprising. You've also got Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and Clover Woods. This stuff really does smell good. My wife is a fan. If any of you have a significant other who likes you to be smelling good, or you just like to smell good for yourself, get it done. The starter pack is a perfect thing for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice. Mini wash, deodorant wipes, whatever you like. And, of course, free shipping. I got a discount code for you here. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. All right. Let's get back to the questions. Okay, this does need to be addressed. On yesterday's show, Mark, Dave Biddle said he thought this year's Olympic team beats the dream team of 1992. There was major fallout, and we were both told we have no leg to stand on. Unfortunately, Dave did not allow me to comment at the time. I would not choose this group over the 1992 Dream Team. So I want that on record in front of everybody. This is a great team. I enjoy it. I'm looking forward to watching them again today. I'm a hoops nerd, but let's not perform hubris. Okay? The argument, this is a deep argument you get into if they played each other, yada, yada. Look, Jordan, Bird, Magic. Come on, man. We got a good team out there now, and we should enjoy it. But I do not want to be lumped in with anybody who claims this group is better than the 92 version. So Dave is on Dave Biddle Island for that one. So we will deal with that. All right. Back to the questions. Mark, would you wear the Loyal Order of the Water Buffaloes hat if presented?
Yeah, I had the T-shirt a couple weeks ago, and the running joke about this nickname is there are such better nicknames out there than being compared to
pretty
Fred
good.
Flintstone.
I don't know.
I mean, Fred Flintstone. I mean, I guess when you mentioned Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and Deadpool, Grand Poobah is right there with the great nicknames. So,
have you had to take your boys to that movie yet?
No, but they have asked. So, should I? I let them.
I have no control over my sons now, so if they may have already seen it. Your kids are right in that wheelhouse where that feels to me like a movie they would really enjoy.
I feel like it's a strong R rating, which I don't
Come on.
mind when my kids, see that stuff. I'd rather them hear it from something like that sometimes. But I know that Deadpool's got some strong humor. I think it's more my humor. So I think we'll be at it.
If you
I'll
want to
review it once I take the kids.
I probably could have done a better job at restricting what content my kids could watch. I know when my youngest was 3, his favorite his favorite movie was Ron Burgundy, which was Anchorman. He just always wanted to watch Ron Burgundy. He's turned out all right, allegedly. No long stints in the poke. All right.
He doesn't have a bias for women or anything. No.
He's got a bias, all right, but we're not going to discuss that on the show. He may be following his dad's footsteps, which never is. Who knows? All right. Dave Biddle checks in. Hi, Mark, longtime fan, first-time caller. When did you finally realize that the Grand Poobah was a great nickname? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen. This is from Dave and Hilliard, where our football teams are better than yours. Dave does. I'll tell you, Hilliard does have a lot of dudes, and they keep building high schools there because people keep moving there. I can't remember anyone in particular, but we've gone over the nickname, and then there's some other good stuff here. Okay.
Dave's the one who put that nickname on me. Yeah. And the more I tried to put my heels in the ground, Avalanche.
Dave and I have discussed this. Dave likes to give people nicknames, and we've referred to the Seinfeld episode where George tries to give himself the nickname T-Bone and then gets Coco. And say, don't try to nickname yourself, bro. That's a slippery slope. All right. Let's get back to some brand of reality here. Mark, this is from Gessig. It appears that Coach Hartline recruits the same type of receiver, tall and over 200 pounds and physical. Does this team need a dynamic slot receiver to make the offense even more diverse?
Okay, so when you're building a receiver room, the answer to that question is yes. He keeps recruiting that type because he can get that type because he's taking the top guy off the heap every year. And that's your true X receiver into the boundary that can, defeat the one-on-one and maybe have to put coverage over the top over there. You need that guy, and you need to take as many shots on that type of guy as you can. But I'm a big proponent of maybe having that 5'9" guy for the slot, or maybe having one or two of those guys for that role, the jet sweeps, the punt returns, kick returns. You can't build a whole roster full of those guys. But when you have guys that can do what those guys do and are bigger, Hartline has a good problem because he's shopping from the top of the echelon type receivers. He doesn't have to get the smaller guys. That's more of something that happens at other places where he's taken the guys that are the most highly coveted. But I think most receiver rooms are built like that. A couple 6'3" guys, head toppers, or 50-50 ball guys, a couple of the true, 6 foot 5'11" guys that can come in and out of breaks, and then your gadget guys.
Yeah, I mean, here's where we are with receiver. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it at this point. And that's just because if you're ever going to, I've said this, I know people love my cliches. Look, I don't have that much. We're on enough that you're going to hear some of the same stuff over and over again. Hartline has so much earned the benefit of the doubt from me in terms of selection, preparation, everything, execution, everyone, that I don't need to be worrying about that. You know what I mean? I'm just going to assume the guys he puts out there are going to whip tail, and you are going to see that this year.
Tell you what,
go ahead.
There was a Damarian Witten question in there, which it kind of goes with this.
Exactly. So Damarian Witten,
and he's the Glenville listed as a tight end coming out of high school, but never really played tight end. I think he got so big, like after sophomore, junior year, it's like, oh, he's going to be a tight end. And as soon as he heard that, he stopped eating, and he stayed receiver type body, and ran track. And the coaches there kept saying, Mark, we have him timed under 4.5. And they give me pretty legit stuff up there. And as you watched him put on the state championship where he scored 3 touchdowns and he ran away from everybody, Mark, he wants to come in as a receiver. Well, he's listed as a tight end, and they're bringing him in as a tight end. He's going to camp this year as a receiver. That adds to Hartline's type of receiver too. He's going to get a bigger body. to go with the Jeremiah Smiths that have that with Witten. And I think that kid may stick at receiver. I mean, he really is a talent. That's kind of the tight end might be farther away. He may be farther away from Scott at tight end when Scott made the move. You know, Scott was a little bulkier at receiver when he made that move. Witten may be still a little more towards that receiver side. So that's a storyline that's we'll see how Hartline develops him and Bud Pagan Miller. Those are two raw guys at receiver that he's going to have to mold into a starter one day, you know, down the road.
Yeah, Mark handled that better than I did. Slim Kid asked the question, Mark, could you see Damarian Witten used in any big wide receiver sets? So he was piggybacking on that. Could he be used across the middle of the field behind J.J. Smith, Carnell Tate, and Igbuka? Someone's got to be open. Your opinion on Witten's route running and hands. Yeah, his route running might not be all that developed yet because I don't think he's been asked to do a really complex tree, but he has good hands, and he does have, you know, when you're what you were talking about, penciling in a guy for that role, he has all the physical characteristics you need to be kind of that hybrid, you know, whatever you're calling it these days.
And you know, Jaden Ballard is buried on this depth chart, and he was much like these guys coming out of high school. And I don't say that's how someone's going to pan out, but he was the big guy that could run like a deer, and you know, is reportedly the fastest receiver we have on some days, you know. So yeah, it's coming out of high school and having this talent, but once you get here, some of these other receivers can play football too. So there's some dogs in that room.
Yeah, I have big hope for that. I don't think you're going to see much of Witten this year, though. I think that would be kind of an unrealistic expectation for him. And look, a lot of receivers come here and don't stick. That's just a fact. It's one of those things where you're not going to really know about a guy until he comes to Ohio State and has to get it on with, you know, it's become common now. Now that Marvin went into the league, there's a lot of stories written, and Garrett Wilson has had some public comments, and Jackson Smith and Jigba are like, you better expect when you come in there will always be 2 5-stars older than you in the room. If you're not ready for that, don't come. Do not expect people to be like the current top freshman. That's not normal. The idea, what he's going to do here, and what should not be applied literally to any other human being until they get the same kind of freakish certification. I don't want to be too hyperbolic about Jeremiah Smith, but man, there's some stuff I could say that I honestly actually believe. I don't want to get quoted on it and get aggregated, but
yeah, I mean,
this dude might be. Yeah. I don't want to.
It's hard when you have such a run-on receivers. Like it was when you had like the Bosa's and all, and Chase Young, and you're like, could Jack Sawyer be the next? And you keep anointing someone the next. You can anoint him the next. I feel pretty solid there, and he could surpass some of those guys. You know, I mean, and they were already first-round top, 10 picks. So
I mean, you could make an argument Marv was the best we've ever had, and literally every single person you speak to will tell you they believe Smith will eventually be a better player. Hopefully, I mean, prospect wise, to actually go and do it, I get it. I'm not getting ahead of myself. Disclaimer, I get it. But having met the dude in person too, he's enormous. I have a picture of him standing with CJ Hicks and Jack Sawyer and Will Howard. And if you said this was the linebackers, you'd be like, okay. Which means Will Howard's a monster too. But
he has a Megatron type thing to him, and as I say that, I know what that invokes. I mean, that guy was getting double team punt returns. That's how strong and big and fast. But Jeremiah is that type of big. I think Calvin was maybe an inch taller, but to give you an idea of the type of talent that he has.
Yeah, and one of the ways to determine this and see if it's legit too is these guys, every guy that comes to Ohio State has been hyped up in their life at some point in time. Some of them more than others. They all talk about Jeremiah Smith like, oh, their tone and their voice changes. And these guys, not only are they studs, they've seen every stud come everywhere. These are the kids that have been to every camp and have been the guy on the pedestal, and they all say, dude, it's something else. There's nothing stronger than your peers.
We're not tamping down expectations in the least. I think I told this story back in the spring. We went to spring practice, and I brought my kids for the first time ever When they walked in, they stood in the corner of the end zone, and less than 10 seconds later, Jeremiah Smith catches a corner route one-handed right in front of him. They were fanboys like you've never seen fanboys before. It was like Swifties running around. Where's Jeremiah? We want to follow Jeremiah. He has that type of star appeal to this next generation. I don't know what it is about him, the TikToks or what these kids are seeing, but my kids have been on a Jeremiah Smith diet since they have left there. And, I think that's going to be very fun for them for the next couple of years.
There's some great stuff going over here. I think this is about Damarian Witten.
Yeah, that was. He did the state championship game. He did it in the Army Bowl. I mean, he's legitimate.
And
he may have been mislabeled in high school for so long that we never truly gave him his respect where he's at.
Hey, he's still at Ohio State, so it all worked out. If he was able to just fly under the radar and land in Columbus, that's an achievement in and of itself. And, of course, Erica Cara, mother of the Armstrong twins, who are the future here. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to talk about Justin Fry today. We're going to cut him some slack. All right. Do we have any questions left? Michigan desecrated the institution of college football. Oh, that's going to take yes, real knows real, Doug. As Mark and I know. That's our thing. Real knows real. All right. We are going to call it a show, and this is important. Coverage today, practice is basically open. And I put that in air quotes because open practice, you are not going to see anyone tackling or really scrimmaging. But you're going to get to see dudes and their pads. You're going to get to see guys on the hoof, which I'm telling you is a big deal. When you see guys move around at practice, it is something to see. And our guys will be there today. We'll have interviews afterwards. We will have all the stuff you guys need. Definitely appreciate Mark handling double trouble this week because the dean, of course, work ethic issues as always, and is down like, what is it? 9:37. He's probably on his fourth or fifth high noon by now. But anyway, we appreciate everyone stopping by. The questions were great. You guys carried us, and have a good one, Bucknutters.